if we play this straight, then you got to look at the timeline. You got to ask, of course, who worked that night? Were they the ordinary guards that worked that night, or did somebody call off sick? That's the first thing you look at, right? Did somebody not come in on that night? Who replaced them? Was that a regular guard, or was that somebody who was a contractor, right? Was that person who brought in to help snuff him out? Who's the warden of the institution? Who is he tied to, right? Is he tied to the Clinton regime, right? So you got to look at all of that and ask questions. Then you ask, where was the cameras? They say the cameras wasn't working. Who had control over the facility or the contract in terms of the surveillance, right? How could you have one of the most valuable prisoners of the century and you don't have eyes on him after the news broke back on July the 22nd or 24th? If it's the 22nd, that's that number 22 again now, okay? 227 is a number that ties into death, okay? Or they'll double it and go double seven, 777, all right? So now nobody's asked, well, again, the cameras were working or not working, turned away from him or not turned on. If he tried to commit suicide on July the 22nd or July the 24th, then you say, well, why wasn't he on a suicide watch, right? And I used to work at a school in Delaware years ago, Ferris School for Boys. Somebody was like on a suicide watch, you got a person that monitors them 24/7. And if you're not monitoring them, you got cameras on them in the cell. Then you checking them every 15 minutes. You take shoestrings and everything from them. You know what I mean? Hey, there's nothing that can be in that cell that they can possibly use to harm themselves. So if the news media is not asking that question, then you know the news media is trying to slant the news, or they pushing a view and calling it the news. None of that has, to my knowledge, has been reported. Was there a check every 10 minutes, 15 minutes? We do know that yesterday they said that the warden that was there has been reassigned. 2 officers that were supposedly working that night have now either been reassigned, or they on permanent. They say they on leave with no pay, I believe, right? So you got to look at that. But a good criminologist, when someone of that caliber, anyone dies, and this occurred the day after a federal judge up in New York, right, released 2,000 pages of information. So sometimes you got to look at what happened the day before, what happened the week before, what happened a month before, rather than just look at the breaking news of that morning. So on that Friday, 2,000 pages are released. Now, most of you, I'm sure you haven't read no 2,000 pages. They released it on a Friday, which we know in the media industry, right, and talk show industry, we call that dump day news. You know what I mean? Because they know you've been on the plantation all week. You say TGIF. I said, nah, damn TGIF. We need TGIS. Thank God it's Saturday, because on Friday, you still on the plantation. You ain't off. Depending on what kind of job you got. You on the plantation, but you slacking on Friday, because you know, in the words of the OJs, you living for the weekend. You know the song, right? So the story is, the news in terms of those 2,000 pages was released on that Friday dump day news, right? Now, Friday night going into Saturday, somebody makes their move on them, or they make a move to get them up out of there. We're going to play it straight and say somebody made their move on them, right? Now, we're still waiting for the autopsy to be released. To this day, the autopsy hasn't been released, right? So the question is, if that's him, how can they haven't released the autopsy? Or is the doctor afraid to release the autopsy? You ain't seen no press conference by the doctor. Usually, if a police officer or somebody dies of shock trauma or somebody prominent like that, you see the medical staff, the doctors and everybody, they having a press conference. The coroner's having a press conference. To this day, we ain't seen a coroner having a press conference. We ain't seen the one doctor that treated him have a press conference. So why is that? I don't think the judge put a seal on the case. So now you ask Key Bono who benefits from his death. That's the other thing. But let me go to a couple of these clips. Then we're going to come back and kind of slow walk this again. Asking the question, of course, Jeffrey Epstein, the conspiracy, right, that took place, and who now will benefit, who thinks that their cases are going to be thrown out. Because the president weighed in, President Trump, he said, of course, it was the Clintons. And for those of you that don't know about the Clinton Chronicles DVD, there was some white people that was telling on the Clinton years ago. Now, we grew up watching the movie Bonnie and Clyde. That was interesting. That was down there in the South in Arkansas. Where the Clintons from? Arkansas. You know what I mean? Clinton's got over 103 murders right? Suspected murders, alleged murders that's been tied to the Clintons. If you don't know that history. I know some of y'all have been talking about the death of, what's the sister died last week, Toni Morrison? Now, she wrote many books, many novels, everything. But most people will remember her for saying that Bill Clinton, Slick Willie, Bubba, was the first black president, man. Not Obama. She said it was Bill Clinton. So that was always going to be tied to her. Don't know why she said it. Because he played the saxophone on the Arsenio Hall show, man. You know what I mean? But some of y'all sisters, if it don't apply, let it fly. You know who you are. Y'all got a thing for that honky tonk, man. I don't know what it is now. All right? I ain't talking about all whites, but you know I'm talking about Bill Clinton. Y'all got a thing for that honky tonk, man. Okay? So now, the Clinton Chronicles is a documentary and a DVD that's been out for years, man. In terms of the women that's died mysteriously, state troopers that's died, hell, Vince Foster, Ron Brown. And we know the story of Mena, Arkansas, and all of the drugs that were being flown in from Colombia. Clinton's brother, Roger Clinton, right, was tied to that. And they were flying the drugs into Mena, Arkansas. In fact, in the documentary, the Clinton Chronicles, they said they were bringing so much drugs in and they were turning out young girls, man. 2 little boys just happened to come across it. They found both of them boys on a train track beheaded. I can't think of their names right now. That's how long ago I've been talking about the Clinton Chronicles. But most of you don't want to believe it because you still want to believe in Santa Claus. You still want to believe in the Easter Bunny. You still want to believe in the Tooth Fairy. You don't want to believe that the Clintons would be involved in something like that. Okay, all right. Stick around. So let me go to a couple of these clips, man. But the president said, of course, the Clintons was the ones that was involved in it. Well, again, Clintons have been known to put bounties out. As Dick Gregory, again, the late Baba Dick Gregory, one of my teachers injectors, came to the studio. It's on YouTube. In fact, I think Donnie Glover, I think he had sobered up that morning from whatever drinking he was doing that night or drugs he was taking, came out to the station and videotaped my interview with Baba Dick Gregory. It's online. You can pull it up. Darren Muhammad and Dick Gregory talking about Ron Brown. He had the pictures of Ron Brown who was shot in the head. Now, Ron Brown was bringing money back into the country from one of the Chinamen. It was a Chinese man. I think his name was Hong or Wong, right? But Ron Brown was bringing money back into the country. This was kind of like a slush fund for the Clintons. Ron Brown gets popped. His son gets popped. Ron Brown said when he was leaving the country on the plane going to Bosnia, that when he got back, he was going to tell everything that had happened because him and his son wasn't going down for Bill and Hillary Clinton. Next thing you know, Ron Brown plane goes down, so we're told. But the plane was intact. Everybody on the plane was killed, and Ron Brown had a bullet in his head. So Dick Gregory got it from someone at Naval Intelligence. White folk, liberated white folk that trusted him, gave him the information, and of course he shared it with the world. But he shared it with me on my radio show, showing us the pictures of Ron Brown and the bullet hole that was in the head of Ron Brown. Okay? So it's out there. You can pull it up on YouTube and watch. Now, just take that story and multiply it is what I'm saying. Then after they killed Ron Brown, one of his girlfriends was Pam Harriman, who used to be married to Avriel Harriman or the other Harriman, the Harriman brothers, right? She goes swimming. Next thing you know, she never come back up. She was at her pool. You can pull it up. Pam Harriman dies. She drowned in the pool. Okay? So, and of course, a few years ago, Ron Brown's wife, Alma, she died a few years ago. But his son could never run for office again after that happened, right? What's his name? Michael Brown? He could never run for office again. Prior to Michael Brown in St. Louis being killed, when anybody talking about Michael Brown, they were talking about Ron Brown's son, Michael Brown. Now when you say Michael Brown, they talking about Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, which I won't talk about that today. That's a whole nother show to come back and talk about Michael Brown and what really went on out there in Ferguson and how they began to murder other real activists out there in Ferguson to cover up what really went on out there in Ferguson, and then how they was putting and promoting some of these fake activists out there in Ferguson like they've done in Baltimore. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, let me get into this and share some clips talking about Jeffrey Epstein dies a day after these 2,000 pages was released. And a lot of this information I have posted on my Facebook page talking about the case of Jeffrey Epstein and the death of Jeffrey Epstein And now, of course, how many other individuals were tied to this that attorney Attorney General William Barr said the investigations are ongoing. The investigations are going to continue in terms of the men and the women that was tied to these pedophile human trafficking rings. Some very powerful people inside of the United States, outside of the United States. And the interesting part is that the only picture that the media keeps showing is a 20-something-year-old picture, I think from 2007, with Trump. I think it's 2007 or 2002, with Trump and Epstein. And they don't show the pictures of the Clintons with Epstein. They don't show the pictures of the Obamas with Epstein. They don't show the pictures of the so-called royal family with Epstein. They don't show the pictures of Jimmy Savile with Epstein. They don't show the pictures of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, right? With Leslie Wexner, the CEO of Victoria's Secrets, who you really going to look at that relationship. That's front page article in the Israeli Times today. The relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and Leslie Wexner, one of the most powerful Zionist Jews in America and in the world. But yet you don't hear them talking about that. So clearly, if Trump was tied to it, not that I'm protecting Trump, but if you know what it was, they take that before court immediately, much as they've been wanting to impeach Trump. You know that. Or they take it to an international body as well. To say, hey, he's tied to some child pedophile rings as the president of the United States or as a private citizen, because there's no statute of limitations on this. And one of the things that was passed in New York earlier this year is the I think it's called the Child Victims Act, which now, and if time permits, I'll share a clip talking about what is the Child Victims Act and how does that allow victims of child abuse, sexual abuse, to now sue in terms of raising the age so that they don't have a what they call a statute of limitation. But then you'll see if these politicians, right, that's jumping up claiming that they care about what happened, see if in their state, if they will introduce a similar bill on a state level so that there are those who have been victims of these child pedophile rings, child sexual abuse rings, that they can now sue. Because for the most part, what we're seeing are the white victims, but very few black victims. And we know damn well in the Boy Scouts, in the Girl Scouts, in the Catholic Church, that the victims that were most victimized were black boys and black girls. Okay? Now it's, of course, down those in Central and South America in terms of the brown ones that were being abused as well. That's why they call Pope Francis the Dirty Pope, because he covered up many crimes in Central and South America when he was Bishop Joseph Bergoglio. Many of you don't know that, okay? And we live in a Jesuit city. We live in a Jesuit state called Maryland, all right? Baltimore. So you better know, as our great scholar and teacher, Dr. Patricia Newton, under Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, said that at least 8, if not 9 out of 10 black women and black girls have been sexually abused. 8 out of 10 black men in this city were sexually abused. And she took it back to, since we're in now 2019, she took it back to the kind of activities was going on in 1619 down on the Eastern Shore in terms of them buck breaking plantations that they had. And if you don't know what buck breaking is, that's when they would take the big black male buck, as they called them, right? And they would sodomize them in front of the women, in front of the children, so that the women who were pregnant would release that fear, that chemical fear, into their unborn children, and the children would be born with fear, not knowing why they're fearful, because, of course, that is the act of putting that fear, and then, of course, laying down layers like an onion, like a track. And so we got to have those who can be our first responders to heal our people and lay down new tracks so our people can heal. That's why you hear of these sexual abuse cases in Baltimore more so than other cities, because of what happened on the plantation. I ain't got to tell you about the mother recently, right? This black woman, if you want to call, I use the word woman loosely, and her so-called girlfriend that killed the little boy. His funeral was yesterday. Was it Malachi Lawson, right? They had custody of him, and then after one time he had a broken leg, the state takes him from her, gives him back to her, only to have her kill him after he was scalded and burned, right? Then she puts him in a blanket, wraps him in a trash bag, and allegedly they said called a Lyft driver, Now, I don't know what kind of dumbass Lyft driver you could be that you don't see what's, you know what I mean? Would you put the bag on the front seat, back seat? You know what I mean? You can't smell a body? I got to find out who that Lyft driver was if it was a real Lyft driver. I won't be calling that Lyft driver, that's for sure. You know what I mean? He need to be a Sift driver, damn, a Lyft driver. But all I'm saying is that take that and multiply it in this city, in this state, in this country, right? In terms of, again, our people behavior under racism, white supremacy, in terms of, again, that mindset, in terms of what's happened to our people. But let me go to some of these clips talking about Jeffrey Epstein. Then we're going to go a little deeper because there's some other news I think that we're going to talk about as well around this that's not being talked about as well. But you always got to ask, of course, who benefits? Because there are those who are tied to these pedophile rings that I think they really thought that if Epstein, if we play it straight, if he's dead, that was the end of the case. That the Attorney General, William Barr, that the judge up there, I think his name is Judge Kaplan, Lewis Kaplan now, right? He brought down some rulings yesterday. So I think they really thought that was going to be it, and there was just going to be a civil case, and there was going to be some money that was going to be divvied out. If time permits, we'll get in and talk about who now has control or will have control over Epstein's estate, his brother Mark Epstein, and who is he tied to, right? So if time permits, we'll slow walk some of this. As I told you, we're going to go down a rabbit hole tonight, all right? So again, if your radio ain't on fire, your radio ain't on, man. It's called Radio on Fire. So if your radio ain't on fire, if your phone ain't on fire, if your laptop ain't on fire, if your PC is trying to be, what do you call it, politically correct, then it ain't on fire, man. If your tablet ain't on fire, you ain't on Radio on Fire, it ain't on fire. So let me go to this clip talking about Epstein dies a day after the release of court documents, and then we'll come back and go a little deeper. So in the meantime, between time, listen to this.
2,000 pages of previously sealed documents, and these stem from a civil case, that had been settled between Ghislaine Maxwell and Virginia Giuffre, the defamation case between these two. Giuffre is an alleged victim of Jeffrey Epstein, and Maxwell is an ex-girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein, someone who has been accused of sort of being the right-hand man, so to speak, of Jeffrey Epstein, someone who recruited girls into the alleged sex ring, someone who was sort of the point person who directed young women who to allegedly have sex with, was kind of the chief operator, so to speak, of Epstein's alleged sex trafficking operation. In these documents, we were expecting to learn names. It was told that powerful people, well-connected people would be named in these documents, and some names were brought to attention. Now, we have to remember that the names that are mentioned in these documents are people who Virginia Giuffre, again, the alleged victim of Jeffrey Epstein, these are names that she brought, she made public in her testimonies, in her interviews with officials. People like former Senator George Mitchell, former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson was named. Of course, both men have denied any sort of involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, have denied any improper relationships with any of the women, including Ms. Giuffre, saying that they had never met Virginia Giuffre. Also, several other well-connected financiers, hedge fund managers, politically connected folks, all mentioned in the 2,000-page documents that were dropped. Again, these are accusations that were made by Virginia Giuffre, and they have been emphatically denied by the people who were named in these documents.
Now that Jeffrey Epstein is dead, will the focus now turn to these women in particular and this case, now that this has been unsealed and it's really exposed out there into the public?
Yeah, well, I mean, what happens next is going to be, it's going to certainly be, an interesting focal point. Obviously, the criminal cases go away. You can't prosecute someone who's dead, as Jeffrey Epstein is. But the civil cases against Jeffrey Epstein, and there are multiple ones out there, and as more victims come forward, we imagine that more cases will be statute of limitations issues. Also, something else to keep in mind, now that Jeffrey Epstein is dead, coupled with the fact that he really has no immediate family, there's no one to challenge any additional search warrants of any of his properties. I mean, he has multiple properties. Obviously, we know he's got the New York mansion, the Virgin Islands property. He's got the property in New Mexico. And so
where Richardson
really
comes in, New Mexico.
To challenge any search warrants if prosecutors decide to pursue additional search warrants of these properties. And it said that there could be more evidence in his home. What that may lead to if they do discover more evidence, there could be more people charged. I mean, at this point, Epstein has been the focus of the criminal investigations. Obviously, all the charges have been focused on him. But there have been folks calling for more charges. Some of the victims have pointed to Ghislaine Maxwell as someone who, again, was the right-hand man, so to speak, helped orchestrate the alleged sex trafficking ring. No charges have been brought against her. So if more evidence turns up, that is something certainly the prosecutors would look into and want to pursue. And prosecutors have said that they are looking into perhaps pursuing more individuals, more uncharged individuals, especially as more evidence comes forward and more victims come forward as they continue to do.
And do we have a sense if there will be any more unsealed documents that could come out in the coming weeks?
At this point, no. But of course, as this investigation continues, again, Epstein, obviously, with him now being dead, cannot. There will be no criminal charges moving forward on him. But this is an extremely wide-ranging investigation, and it is not the sort of investigation that you would imagine prosecutors would just drop, especially if there are other people to be charged, if there are other potential, people to pursue. And so with that, as this investigation continues in other directions, of course, more information and more details and more evidence could come forward.
Well, I just want to let you know we are getting an official statement from the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and this is dated, obviously, Saturday, August 10th. Approximately 6:30 a.m., inmate Jeffrey Edward Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell in the Special Housing Unit from an apparent suicide at the Metropolitan Correction Center, MCC, in New York. Life-saving measures were initiated immediately by responding staff. Staff requested emergency medical services, EMS, and life-saving efforts continued. Mr. Epstein was transported by EMS to a local hospital for treatment of life-threatening injuries and subsequently pronounced dead by hospital staff. The FBI is investigating the incident. Mr. Epstein was a 66-year-old male and arrived at MCC New York on July 6th under pre-trial status after being indicted for sex trafficking of minors and conspiracy. MCC New York is an administrative security facility that currently houses 763 male offenders in New York, New York. So as we look ahead, Mola, you've combed through some of these documents. You've seen the big names in bold, and many of these men in politics, in business, hedge fund owners have come forward saying that they deny these allegations. What's your sense about where this case goes at this point?
Continue to investigate. Obviously, any allegation by any of these victims, any of the alleged victims, will be things that prosecutors take seriously and look into. So you'd imagine that they are going to vet each one of the allegations and each one of the accusations. As far as who may be charged, which of these accusations are in fact true, which of the powerful, well-connected politicians or world leaders or financiers any sort of...
I'm going to bring this one down because this is from CBS. You can listen to it, but you can clearly hear, of course, he doesn't name no names other than, of course, Epstein. Now, if he got the report, he's a reporter, right? I don't think he mentioned Prince Andrews, right? He didn't mention all the hedge. All he had to do was start naming the names. This is how you know, again, because they're corporate control news, that they're not going down a rabbit hole. This will go down and name some names. So, again, that's I wanted to just kind of turn that down and end that one because he didn't want to name no names. He just talking about these are some powerful people. Now you got to name the names. Give the people the information. So, again, let me see if I got this next clip. But clearly, man, this is a case of, who done it? You know what I mean? Who done it? Y'all remember the song, Who Done It, right? So, this is a case of who done it. But as I said before, who benefits at the same time. So we got some of these other, you got the piece of Attorney General Barr. Let me see if we got that piece of Barr. We're going to share that in a second. As Barr was talking about again, that Epstein was supposed to be under and on a suicide watch. Somehow he was taken off the suicide watch. And as I said, now the warden, and I think I got an article talking about who that warden was and is, and 2 guards. One person didn't come to work that night. Got to find out if anybody else didn't come to work that night. See this how you put on your thinking cap. This how you put on your Dick Gregory magic glasses, as we said the other day. If a bank got robbed and I worked at the bank and I didn't come in that day, I'd be prime suspect number 1. You know what I mean? So that's the first thing you look at. You check roll call. Who came in, who didn't come into work, right? Did somebody get sick leave, quick leave, pick leave, or any other kind of leave all of a sudden? Because they probably was privy to what was about to go down and didn't want to be there when it did go down. So that's how you at least put your glasses on. To look at the perpetration or the bull that's being laid out on the public. But let me get that clip you got, if you would, from Attorney General Barr talking.
Before I begin, I'd like to briefly address news from the Manhattan Correctional Center over the weekend regarding Jeffrey Epstein. This sex trafficking case was very important to the Department of Justice and to me personally. It was important to the dedicated prosecutors in the Southern District of New York and to our FBI agents who investigated the case and were preparing it for trial. Most importantly, this case was important to the victims who had the courage to come forward and deserve the opportunity to confront the accused in the courtroom. I was appalled, and indeed the whole department was, and frankly, angry to learn of the MC failure to adequately secure this program. We are now learning of serious irregularities at this facility that are deeply concerning and demand a thorough investigation. The FBI and the Office of Inspector General are doing just that. We will get to the bottom of what happened, and there will be accountability. But let me assure you that this case will continue on against anyone who was complicit with Epstein. Any co-conspirators should not rest easy. The victims deserve justice, and they will get it.
All right, we'll stop that there. Let me see if I got this next clip talking about the guards, of course, falsified the logs. Now, of course, they'll be charged for that if they falsified the logs in terms of saying they were there, but they weren't there, or they checked on them and they didn't check on them. Then we're going to name some of the names, I think, that has come out in this case in terms of so-called prominent and elites. But if you've been listening to the State of the City, listening to Brother Irritated Genie, listening to Dr. Randy Short, we've already told you who some of the names are, of course, high places and spaces. But also, I think, going down a rabbit hole and talk about not just Ghislaine Maxwell Hyman, who was one of the groomers, but some of the other women that's been tied to this as well, particularly to that New York building on 66th Street. So you always look at that numerology. He's 66. The building's on 66th Street or 66th Ave. Yeah, 66th Street in New York, which we'll share that information shortly. Waiting on this clip to come up so we can give it to you. Again, talking about the guards falsified their information regarding their logs. So let me see if we got this piece.
Protocols in this situation. But given the unique situation here, why didn't Jeffrey Epstein have a kind of custom-built protocol? I mean, he's fingered high-profile people, not just in the United States establishment, but from countries overseas and elsewhere. Why, in other words, was this neglect allowed to happen?
Well, Mark, I'm going to start off with an anecdote. And when I was a young detective sergeant at the Ben Salem Police Department, suburban Philly, along with the U.S. Marshals, we arrested an international hitman. He was involved in killing people in Italy, in the U.S., and once we brought him, he escaped other prisons. Once we brought him in our little jail cell, it was my job, along with some other officers, to sit in a chair and stare at him through the bars.
That's right.
For 4-hour shifts along
That's
the
on
night,
Fox.
as the night went along.
Epstein
Finally, the
guards
Marshals
suspected of
took him up to the
falsifying
FCC,
logs
was
to show they were
arraigned
checking on
there.
him.
Well, a year and a half later, guess what? The same guy, William Arrigo is his name. He tried to escape the MCC with using bed sheets, and he didn't make them long enough and fell out the window and died. So whether he was committing suicide, trying to escape, who knows? But the point is, the protocols failed.
Jim, we've heard all day on Fox and other stations about the
Friday night, whatever, with how this fell apart. I was listening to the doctor
You got it?
beforehand.
All right, we'll go to a better clip. We can go to that one. I'll turn this one down so I think the family can hear it a little better. This one's a little low. So if you would, share that with them, my brother.
Is the best indicator of future behavior. Only 2 weeks ago, he tried to kill himself.
Got it?
Press reporting that federal jail guards are suspected of falsifying log entries to show they were checking on inmates in Jeffrey Epstein's unit every half hour. The AP source, the one they cite, says they weren't actually checking on them and these logs were falsified. So surveillance video reviewed after the death showed that guards never made some of the checks that were noted in the log. Again, this is the Associated Press. We're working to independently confirm that. In the meantime, let's go to correspondent Brian Yennis with more on this rapidly unfolding investigation.
Today, Attorney General William Barr temporarily reassigned the warden of the Metropolitan Correctional Center where Jeffrey Epstein died of an apparent suicide. He also placed the 2 guards assigned to Epstein's unit on administrative leave, pending the outcome of the investigations by the Department of Justice and the FBI. The moves come a day after Barr cited serious irregularities at MCC. The Associated Press reports one of the 2 guards was a substitute and not a correctional officer. The union representing the guards tells Fox News Epstein's death is the fault of the Bureau of Prisons for systemic understaffing and overworked guards. This, as the New York Post reports, Epstein hanged himself Saturday with a bedsheet wrapped around his neck and tied to the top of a bunk bed in his jail cell, apparently kneeling toward the floor and strangling himself. The criminal investigation to Epstein's alleged sex trafficking network is now zeroing in on Epstein's alleged co-conspirators, like Epstein's former girlfriend, 57-year-old Ghislaine Maxwell. In unsealed court documents, Virginia Giuffre, one of Epstein's accusers, calls Maxwell a primary co-conspirator and a madam who used to procure underage girls for sexual activities. This, a day after FBI agents raided Epstein's so-called pedophile island, his home on a private U.S. Virgin island where he allegedly trafficked underage girls. President Donald Trump today defended his retweet over the weekend of a conspiracy theory implying the Clintons had something to do with Epstein's death.
And the question you have to ask is, did Bill Clinton go to the island? Because Epstein had an island. That was not a good place as I understand it, and I was never there. So you have to ask, did Bill Clinton go to the island? That's the question. I want a full investigation. And that's what I absolutely am demanding.
Lawyers for Epstein's accusers are now asking a federal judge to dismiss Epstein's non-prosecution agreement, especially parts that offered immunity to his co-conspirators. Shannon?
All right, Brian, thank you very much. I want to bring in the former acting attorney general, Matt Whitaker, to talk about this. First of all, your reaction to that report from the AP that these logs may have been falsified. It may show video shows that they weren't actually there for the times that they did enter on the log, that they were checking on people.
Well, it seems like every hour we learn new facts that raise additional questions that are unanswered. And so I am sure that right now Bill Barr is just waiting for the next shoe to drop to find out what else happened at this facility. But it's really concerning. But one of the things that I think everybody needs to remember, this case is not over.
That's also was at Fox. Prince Andrew linked to Epstein draws new scrutiny after suicide and docu-dump. See, that's the international part. Because when you start talking about the British, you got to always remember Charles and his relationship to Jimmy Savile. When you start talking about the pedophile rings. And Jimmy Savile used to be one of the managers for the Beatles. This is why I keep coming back to that movie that came out about the Manson murders, because they were talking about, of course, Helter Skelter, and of course the Beatles, which came out of the Tavistock Institute, created. Tavistock Institute is in London, England, controlled for mind control and human behavior. So they created the Beatles and some of these other groups that came after the Beatles to use, of course, to indoctrinate the young generation then. Now they're using the same methods today. They're just not using the Beatles. They're using a whole bunch of other people today. But got to know that history of the Beatles, who were called the evil Beatles then. They weren't even called the Beatles. They were called the evil Beatles because they was anti-God, anti-Christian, anti-Christ, anti-everything. They were the rebels, but their job was to mislead the generations then. This is why there's been so much talk about Woodstock 50 years ago. Remember they were trying to recreate Woodstock here, right? Talking about they were coming here. And then they said, no, that ain't happening, right? But the object sometimes is just put it out there in the public, right? So you kind of plant the seed on the minds of the people. But see, we got that clip talking about Prince Andrews. You got it? All right, let's go to that, and then we'll come back and go a little deeper. So listen to this,
It is
family.
incredible how quickly Jeffrey Epstein's luck has changed in his life. After getting a very light sentence for underage prostitution, he is now looking at a very long time behind bars, potentially, after he offered a $100 million package to be able to go back to his nice home in New York City and be under constant surveillance. The judge said, no way. Now, court documents reveal that one of his accusers has a very compelling argument about her sexual slavery, and it does not look so good right now for the royal family. Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, has caused headaches for the royal family for years, but not at this level. In 2015, Virginia Roberts accused Epstein of forcing her to have sex with Prince Andrew when she was 17 years old. Buckingham Palace has denied the whole thing, but with more documents coming out, this could turn into a royal mess. Here now, New York Post award-winning investigative journalist Maureen Callahan, also author of American Predator. Good to have you here, Maureen. So you say that he's the Queen's favorite son and that he is no stranger to embarrassing this family. Elaborate on that for me.
He has a long history of associating with various strong men and oligarchs for personal profit. And he has had this association with Jeffrey Epstein, perhaps his most troublesome, for many, many, many years. Even Epstein's conviction, as you noted, on this very light charge of underage prostitution, which that phraseology is weird, it should be child rape and trafficking. But even after he was released from a very light 13-month sentence in Palm Beach County Jail, he comes back to his beautiful Upper East Side townhouse, and he is feted along with Prince Andrew. They spend 4 days celebrating together. They take a very chummy walk through Central Park. And meanwhile, Epstein gets on the phone to try to settle some debts that have been caused by Andrew's equally troublesome ex-wife, the greedy Sarah Ferguson.
Yeah, I mean, when you read these documents, you know, some of which have come out and others
Fox News alerted Attorney General
at some
Bill
point.
Barr vowing to get to the bottom of Jeffrey Epstein's apparent suicide behind bars. Alarming new details reveal one of the guards assigned to him to monitor him was a substitute. Our next guest says someone had to drop the ball for this to happen. Former U.S. Attorney Brett Holman joins us now to explain. Brett, thanks for being here. What do you make of these new revelations?
You don't have it. We'll come back to it.
It's shocking. This is an agency that
we go to this next clip talking about shrieking.
Its budget,
heard the morning that Epstein in the cell. The morning that Epstein was found dead. I'll go to that and then give you time to find the other one. All right. It's on my page though. If you go to my page and scroll down. All right. Let me just go to this piece talking about the shrieking that was heard.
Jail where he was being held. Government investigators raided the alleged sex trafficker's home in the Virgin Islands yesterday. Is at the
that was yesterday. They raided the home
here in New York City, where one of Epstein's guards on the night he died reportedly was not a regular corrections officer. Mola, good morning. What's the latest on these investigations?
Well, good morning, Tony. They are expanding and very likely to include that new detail that you mentioned about the guard not being a regular correctionals officer here at the facility in downtown Manhattan.
Some of y'all just getting this information for the first time. So just listen, please. Thank you.
Epstein's death. Of course, that comes after Attorney General William Barr called on the FBI and the Office of the Inspector General, both to investigate. And all of this comes as the investigation into Epstein's alleged sex trafficking operation continues in full force. Pictures show FBI agents raiding Jeffrey Epstein's private island in the Caribbean 2 days after the convicted pedophile died by.
They got to go to the farm in Mexico now, New Mexico.
And there will be accountability. On Monday, Attorney General William Barr criticized the New York Detention Center where the
disgraced financier was held.
I was appalled and frankly angry to learn of the MCC's failure to adequately secure this prisoner.
CBS News has learned the morning of Epstein's death, there was shouting and shrieking from his cell. Guards attempted to revive him while saying, "Breathe, Epstein, breathe." With Epstein gone, potential co-conspirators involved in his alleged sex trafficking network are shifting into focus. British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell is accused of recruiting underage girls for sex. She's denied those claims in the past and has not been charged with a crime. Maxwell is said to be Epstein's ex-girlfriend turned business associate. Her current location is unknown.
She's more of a partner in his obsession, really, and there are allegations that she was involved in having sex with some of these girls as well.
Court documents from 2011 reveal Epstein controlled several apartments in a building just blocks from his $77 million New York townhouse,
77.
and allegedly housed
They arrested him on what day?
underage girls
July the 6th, going into July the 7th, right?
Yesterday,
7-7.
stern warning for anyone who may be evading
No
justice.
coincidence.
Let me assure you that this case will continue on against anyone who was complicit with Epstein. Any co-conspirators should not rest easy. The victims deserve justice, and they will get it.
Well, CBS News has learned that Epstein's estranged brother Mark was called after Epstein's apparent suicide. He was the one who actually identified the body. The New York City Medical Examiner's Office has performed an autopsy on Epstein. Tony, those results
Hasn't
are
been
still
released.
A lot of people waiting for those. Mola, we're also learning more about Epstein's 13-month stint in a Florida county jail. That was after he pled guilty in 2008 to charges of soliciting a minor for prostitution. What can you tell us in that case?
Well, that's right, Tony. In an interview with our West Palm Beach CBS affiliate, a former corrections worker with the sheriff's office there said that Epstein was, quote, treated like a celebrity during his time there. She claims that his cell was often left unlocked regularly, that he was allowed to sort of roam around the dormitory area, often naked without any sort of repercussions.
Very strange details, just stranger and darker by the day.
Yep. Of course, I'll share with you, for those who's been watching and listening, that you can go to whatdoesitmean.com, and of course it was reported that Epstein, in that case back in 2008, that the prosecutor down there was Acosta, and Acosta was told by none other than Robert Mueller to back off. Robert Mueller was the head of the FBI at that time. Epstein was there, so he was working for the FBI. And as I told you, he was clearly a double agent, if not a triple agent, quadruple agent, but he was Mueller's. I'll give you the headline. You can go and read it for yourself. Here's one headline before we get back in some of the YouTube clips that I'm sharing. U.S. federal judge and New York cop linked to Epstein suicided after Facebook targets them for death. You know about the judge who had the original case, Judge Sweet, I think his name was, Stuart Sweet. He was 96 years old, but nevertheless, he died in March before this case came back up now in July. All right? There was a cop who was shot and killed, New York cop, they said, who was tied to this case as well. Here's another article. FBI divers recover human bones in the waters off Epstein Orgy Island, as Lolita Island was called, as deep state meltdown accelerates. Here's another one. Epstein death comes after the FBI MI6 ends with mysterious London blackout. Comey's daughter was on lockdown. You know, they wanted to give this case in New York, Epstein's case, to Comey's daughter. And they were not putting it under sexual abuse or child sex trafficking. They were trying to put it under political corruption. Well, the judge that now has the case, Judge Lewis Kaplan, has now put it under his, and he brought the charges himself to make sure that this is a lock solid case, okay? So, not just against Epstein, but the co-conspirators. You can go online and read this and then cross-reference what's in this article, right, by Googling other stories. But again, there was a mysterious blackout in London. If you remember, there was a blackout in New York last month. There was a blackout in D.C. So you got to ask, when these blackouts are going on, is that a cover for something else that's going on? So you get the story of the blackout, but you don't get the story behind why there's a blackout. Sometimes they're trying to shut down computers so people can't erase material. Y'all ought to know that when you in Baltimore. Hello. What do you call that? Ransomware? You ought to know that. Hello. Man, we need a blackout in this town. All right? But let's keep going. Epstein death comes after FBI MI6 meet ends with mysterious London blackout. I'm not going to read the article to you. You can go online, Google the article, but it's at a website, whatdoesitmean.com. Here's another article, as we mentioned before, as we talk about Epstein. Let me see if I got the one talking about the $100 million bounty that was put on Epstein. I know we gave you that before as well, regarding the $100 million bounty that was put on his head. Let me see if I got it and I can give it to you. But also, we talked about, as I said before, Mueller, and Mueller interfered in the case in 2008 because Epstein was theirs, and he made it clear that Epstein is ours. So, tread lightly on Epstein. So therefore, you saw the agent or the prosecutor down there who became the labor secretary, Acosta, said we got what we could get based on what he was told to do regarding, again, Epstein being working for Robert Mueller. So again, and this came during the time the Attorney General was, what's her name, Loretta Lynch. Attorney General was Eric Holder. What did they do? Nothing. So again, you can go back and read a lot of that, but you can pull it up, whatdoesitmean.com, read it for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. Let me see if I got this other headlines before we, I think, transition.
What's the highly anticipated release today of thousands of pages of documents from a lawsuit filed by a woman who claims financier Jeffrey Epstein kept her as a sex slave. Mola Lengi reports on some big names mentioned in those documents.
Newly unsealed court documents include a sworn deposition from 2016 when an alleged victim of Jeffrey Epstein was asked which politically connected and financially powerful people she was directed to have sex with as a minor. That woman, Virginia Giuffre, has long accused Epstein and his one-time girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, of sexually abusing and recruiting her into the alleged sex trafficking ring. But the new documents name more names: former U.S. Senator George Mitchell and former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson. Richardson issued a statement today calling the allegations completely false. Governor Richardson has never met Ms. Giuffre. Mitchell echoed that denial in his own statement, saying he has never met, spoken with, or had any contact with Ms. Giuffre. The court documents stem from a now settled defamation lawsuit between Giuffre and Maxwell. Giuffre has been among the most vocal of Epstein's alleged victims.
Before you know it, I'm being lent out to politicians and to academics and to people that royalty.
In her deposition, Giuffre mentions, among others, Prince Andrew of Great Britain and high-powered attorney Alan Dershowitz, claiming Giuffre was trafficked to have sex with him in New York, Palm Beach, New Mexico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and on Epstein's private jet known as the Lolita Express. Dershowitz told CBS News today these documents exonerate him. He followed up with a statement saying, Giuffre invented the false accusations against me only in 2014 when her lawyers pressured her to do so for financial reasons. I never had sex with an underage person, Dershowitz claimed. I never socialized or had sex with any woman connected to Jeffrey Epstein. The court documents also include some new details about President Trump's relationship with Epstein. Giuffre says Trump and Epstein were friends. Flight records show then-citizen Trump flew on Epstein's jet in 1997. But Giuffre also said, according to the documents, she never had sex with Donald Trump, nor did she witness him have sex with any other girls. The president says he cut off Epstein years ago.
Well, Jeffrey Epstein is sitting in a prison cell.
So that was one of the clips that you heard. Let me move quickly because I want to bring it on home and talk about Baltimore before we open up the lines. Because we'll come back again next week, get into this, again, kind of slow walk this, or Monday. If we're able to do a special edition on Monday, we'll have to find out. We'll let you know. Who's on Monday, 7 o'clock? Anybody? We'll see if we can move anybody around. Yeah. Okay, all right, let's do this. I'm going to give you some quick headlines. You can go online, read it. They're at my website. Epstein, Bean, and Buck, the Democratic Donors Sex Creep Club at Real Clear Politics. If you don't know who Terry Bean is, look him up. If you don't know who Ed Buck is, or Buck Schmelter, and those two black men that was found dead in his home out there in California, look him up. All right. Here's another headline talking about shrieking heard from Jeffrey Epstein's jail cell the morning he died. Also, Trump defends sharing conspiracy theory linking Bill Clinton and Epstein. Here's another one. Jeffrey Epstein computer seized during FBI raid on private island. That was yesterday's news. Prince Andrew's link to Jeffrey Epstein draws new scrutiny at the suicide and document dump. Here's another one. The man who could inherit Jeffrey Epstein's millions, talking about his brother Mark Epstein. That's a must read. I mean, anything I share with you is a must read, but you definitely want to read this. This is from the Daily Beast, posted yesterday. The man who could inherit Jeffrey Epstein's millions. And of course, he himself has been accused of some improprieties as well. And he's straight gay. Let's be clear about that. He's straight gay. I ain't say slay. Slay, as they say, right? I said gay. Let me keep moving here. Warden of jail where Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, reassigned 2 guards placed on leave on orders of Attorney General. Of course, that means they will eventually be charged, fired, and charged. But let's wait and see if that plays itself out. Here's another article. That's Baltimore. Epstein guards suspected of falsifying logs to show they were checking on him. And man, I got to share this article, which most people are not talking about. One of the biggest stories on Friday was the Judicial Watch. Judicial Watch, for those of you who do not know, a conservative group in Washington, D.C. They were the ones that filed a lawsuit against the Obama administration that forced Eric Holder to resign, and then Obama had to pardon Holder, pardon his wife and his mother-in-law for emails that they sent out regarding Operation Fast and Furious. Now, if you don't know it, pull it up, read it. Eric Holder resigns after Judicial Watch, and the judge told Eric Holder and the Obama administration they had to hand over all the files to Judicial Watch. Eric Holder didn't do it. I think it was the Senate that charged him, or the House charged him with contempt for not handing over the files, but that was because of Operation Fast and Furious. So I ain't talking about the movie Fast and Furious. I ain't talking about the movie came out last week, Boggs and Hogs or whatever it was, right? But Operation Fast and Furious was the gun running that the United States government under George W. Bush and then under the Obama administration were running guns from Arizona, Texas, and other southern states down into Mexico. Now, when you got those dum-dums running around here talking about the eye in the sky plane, right? Persistent surveillance solutions. Thanks, Brother David Johnson, Brother David Anthony Wiggins, Brother Donald Smith, and a few others, Brother Kevin, Brother Sean, for fighting and exposing this, Sister Nikki and others regarding, again, this spy in the sky plane, persistent surveillance solutions, because they said they operated in Mexico. Go and check the homicide rate in Mexico, man. They lost 7,000 last year, so you gonna tell me that they had a plane that worked in Mexico? You bet Juarez, Mexico? Go check the homicides for Juarez, Mexico. That Glenn McNutt and the rest of his McNuts running around here, Patrick Henderson, somebody called himself Arnold Williams or something, and you got some other dum-dums, Leo Burrows and others running around here, even C4, pushing that garbage. But again, we'll come back and share with you how that's being tied to John and Laura Arnold, which is some powerful white philanthropists out of Houston, Texas, that came from Enron after they stole the millions and billions from the taxpayers, rolled his money into a foundation, right? John and Laura Arnold Foundation. They're the same one that was backing Kathy Pugh and bringing that program Roca Inc. into Baltimore. Okay, they tied their money into what they call private equity fund, and they were backdooring the spying on Baltimore citizens. They ain't solved no crime in the city, claiming they need to put this spy plane up in the sky, man. And so we've been pushing back and fighting it. I've been fighting as hard as Brother David Johnson has, exposing that information. But a lot of that was tied to the Baltimore Community Foundation. Who sits on it as the president? Tom Wilcox, retired police officer. Wes Moore, who came out of the 182nd Airborne. For some of y'all be running around trying to push that chump on our people. Kirk Smoke, Stu Sims, a whole bunch of boule sits on the board of the Baltimore Community Foundation. They were sliding the money to the police department through acting as a slush fund and spying on our people. So I'll come back on another day to go into that. But nevertheless, Judicial Watch talked about the 302 files that were released last week, the smoking gun regarding the so-called Russian interference in the 2016 election. Never happened. but they exposed who wrote these, falsified these reports and papers that then they would give to members of Congress, right, to try to pull off a coup against President Trump. But those files was released last week. If you don't know anything about it, go to Judicial Watch and Google 302, the smoking gun, proof of FBI malfeasance, man. Those who were in the FBI that was working, Comey, along with, what was the other one who's Mueller, Page, and some of the others as well, man. So you can go and read it yourself. But again, Judicial Watch, again, conservative group, but every time they go to court and they filing them necessary lawsuits, they being successful. But you ain't heard most of the mainstream media talk about this. Here's another one. Epstein accuser sues Ghislaine Maxwell. Her real name is Ghislaine Maxwell Hyman, Hyman, okay? So let's keep going on this one. In today's Israeli Times, the relationship between Epstein and Jewish philanthropist Leslie Wexner. Now, Wexner spelled Wexner. Wexner is the CEO. We got that song by Tony. Anniversary, we say, Victoria be no secret at the end of the day. Well, Wexner is the CEO of Victoria's Secret, man. So, and for those of you who don't know, as Baba D. Gregory always talked about, the reason why they call it Victoria's Secret, because Queen Victoria was a man. So that gave new meaning to Victoria's Secret. All right? You don't hear him call back. Who's next? I had to go take 2 baths after reading half this stuff, man. 2 showers after. I felt dirty. Like, damn. But nevertheless, the relationship between Epstein and Jewish philanthropist Wexner. So you can go, time won't allow me to get into it. It's 8:35 now. Time won't allow me to get into it and read it. I may read it on the show Saturday, but this is an extensive article in the Times of Israel today, talking about Leslie Wexner and his relationship. Clearly, this was a homosexual relationship that these two had going on right here, okay? So you can go online and read it. I won't be able to get into it right now, but that's front page, man, in the Jewish newspaper, the Times of Israel. And again, as we're talking about this Jeffrey Epstein story, there's so many layers to it, and somebody has to have enough wherewithal to kind of slow it down like an onion and peel back the onion on this information, man. But we got to use this because you got to know how they got access to those girls, because they use the same methods to get access to our daughters and our sons. So when you look at this whole Ed Buck story, he was promising young brothers careers in what? Modeling, fashion industry, movie industry, etc. So when they talk about the couch in Hollywood, hey man, Terry Crews, if a man ran up to, what's that guy named Adam Ventnor from WME-IMG? He ran up to him and grabbed him by the balls in front of his wife publicly. You know it ain't the first time he did that. You do understand that. And you see what Terry Crews' payoff is now? They got him on TV really cooning on. He on there with Simon. What's that guy named Simon? What, he really cooning on that show, man? Right? So you got that Victoria's Secret song, man? You pull that up yet? That's all. We'll share that next week. But let me bring it on home to Baltimore, man, because last week there was the shooting of Baltimore City police officer Isaac Carrington. Now, of course, there's many theories, man, but clearly it happened broad daylight. It happened on Todd and Summerfield Avenue, which is, I believe, in the Sedonia community. He was talking to a neighbor, is what we were told, right? Not unloading groceries from his car, man, right? Now, you say, man went shopping to the grocery store without his wife. That don't even add up, man. But they said that the suspect jumped out of the car, grabbed and put a gun up to the neighbor's head. What they said was one suspect. So then they said, all of a sudden, the neighbor dropped whatever he had in his hand and ran. They said the police officer ran, and the gunman or 2 gunmen chased the police officer, Isaac Carrington. Well, if it's a robbery, why they gotta chase him, right? See, now if I got something personal against you, this is a personal beef, now I'm chasing you. But if it's a robbery and I'm trying to get what you got, I'm gonna shoot you right there and take the loot. Now, you haven't heard anything, and to this day, they haven't said what was taken, man. So you gotta ask, if you play it straight, was this a robbery because he just won some money on the lottery, at the casino? Did he just win an insurance payout? I mean, what? If they said this was a robbery, to this day, they haven't said if anything was taken from Isaac Carrington, right? Now, you got to get his phone records because somebody had to know he was going to be outside and he wasn't armed with his gun, right? For those of you that's trying to disarm the American people, black, brown, red, yellow, and white, the only thing gonna stop a gun is a gun. You know what I mean? So again, somebody had to know he was outside and he wasn't strapped, right? With his Roscoe or with his piece, right? So you got to look at the neighbor and ask who was the neighbor, right? Then you look at it from all angles. If somebody's kicking him, it's one thing to shoot him, but then you say he's kicking him. Well, if they kicking him, that means this is a very personable thing here. If they shot him 5 times, as we were told, right? That's real personal. So you got to ask, right? Has he been out there creeping on his wife, right? Or somebody, is his wife creeping around with somebody, right? If he got a side piece or a side chick, right? What is really going on that this person obviously must have knew him and knew him enough that when they shot him, they kicked him and then shot him at the same time. Because clearly if nothing was taken, then we can dismiss this whole robbery story that they've tried to put out right now. All right? So, but we pray that he comes through. And if you saw the news clip the other night, your police commissioner, I can't believe that he's that desperate for attention, man. He got to do a YouTube clip. Hi, I'm Chief Michael Harrison, and I'm in the hospital room of Sergeant Isaac Carrington, man. He's in the hospital room shooting a video. You got that piece, man? He in the hospital room shooting a video, man. Right? Now, it was a poor taste and poor judgment because you could have been in the room and not shown the man laying in the hospital. He heavily medicated. He got nasal gastric tubes in the stomach and in the nose, and he's sitting up there throwing up a thumbs up, talking about 10-8, which clearly means that, 10 like a 10-4 signal, but he said 10-8, which clearly means he's going to be back on the scene. But it showed poor judgment and leadership in your police commissioner. They've not had one press conference since last week to give a description of any suspects. They said that they arrested a man last week, but he was not involved in it. They've been stopping blue Acras, and we don't know who gave a description that it was a blue Acura, man. With all these closed-circuit TV cameras in Baltimore City, we haven't seen no blue Acura in that area moving at a high speed, man. So you can't tell me with all the speed cameras, which acts as surveillance systems, all right? With all these closed-circuit cameras, with all the access to what they call Stingray equipment to be able to gather information off your cell phones, man, that they can't tell us who apparently shot Sergeant Isaac Carrington. And again, as I said before, what are the real culprits look like? What's the description of them, man? We haven't gotten anything. So it shows poor taste. Again, from your police commissioner. You got that clip? Let's play that clip, man. It was just bad. I mean,
Baltimore Police
talk
Department.
Radio, everybody talking
I'm Commissioner
about
Mike Harrison.
They can't believe he was going to the hospital. Does he not have enough nap time, rap time, or lap time, man? Everybody know you, Commissioner. You ain't got a word on your sleeve. Department. You know what I mean? It was more about him than it was the police, about the police officer. But let's go to that clip,
I'm Commissioner Mike Harrison, and I am with Sergeant Isaac Carrington, who wants to say something to you. Isaac, go ahead and say what you want to say.
I love y'all. I'm 10-8. I'll be back.
So Isaac is awake. We're here in the hospital room. He still has a long way to go, but our prayers have been answered, and now we all have to rally around getting him healed and making sure we find who did this to hold them accountable. Wave at him, Isaac.
Is this a 30-something, 40-something year old police officer, man, or a kindergarten cop? I mean, wave at him, Isaac. Give him the thumbs, Isaac. I mean, like, what is this really all about? That's all. It just showed poor taste, poor judgment of Police Commissioner Michael Harrison when he should have been hitting the streets trying to find the alleged suspects who shot this police officer. And let's look at this now. If somebody could break into, if you play this story straight lately in Baltimore, a lot of mysterious stuff been going down. You get a sergeant that can be shot and they haven't arrested nobody. Now, of course, we know about Sean Suter who was killed and ain't nobody been arrested. Then you get somebody supposedly broke into Congressman Elijah Cummings' trap house over in the 2000 block of Madison Avenue. Now, he's a congressman. He's worth $1 million. You mean he ain't put out no reward money, man? He ain't offered up no reward to find out who broke into his house. You understand what I'm saying? Couldn't that been a dry run? That next time they coming in the room, you know what I mean? They coming for you if you home. And Maya Rockamo Cummings, man. But you haven't heard nothing else about that? He ain't offering up no reward. I mean, not even $500. You mean his good friend Larry Young and the community, Druid Heights Community Development Corporation, they not offering up no money, man? Congressman House? Hey, come on, man. Yeah, but look at this now. Say what's really going on in this city. And my last story before I open up the lines, man. I saw where they said they opened up a recreation center in Baltimore, man. Now, you know, you got your dumb mayor down there. That trifling ass nigga, he have a ribbon cutting ceremony for a recreation center reopening, man. That's how dumb he is. I seen him have a ribbon cutting ceremony for a safe street center being opened up. What's next, man? A new methadone clinic? You gonna have a ribbon cutting ceremony? Safe street? You having a ribbon cutting ceremony for a safe street center that opened up in, where they opened it up in Northeast Baltimore, York Road? You know there ain't nobody but the Archdiocese of Baltimore. You know, it ain't gonna be nobody but Loyola University, because they coming for that York Road corridor, man. And one day I'm gonna slow it down, as I've been talking about opportunity zones, which I gotta come back and talk about it, show you how these universities are taking over different corridors in this city, man. That whole York Road corridor will belong to Loyola University. If you haven't figured that out. Your elementary schools, your recreation centers up there, they already in partnership with them. Your community groups and organizations will be working up underneath of them, man. But it really was just show you how dumb your mayor is, man. A ribbon cutting ceremony for Operation Safe Street Center, man. But be real. What's next? A methadone clinic ribbon cutting ceremony, man? You don't see that in the white community. Only in our community. Again, when our turn comes, the whole script and the flip change. Speaking of script and flip change, I saw in the paper today where the Baltimore City Teacher Union asking citizens to contribute money for fans for Baltimore City Public Schools, man. Schools open up in 2 weeks, right? Now, it was a few years ago when Governor Hogan and Maryland Comptroller Peter Franchot withheld millions of dollars from Baltimore County because the schools in Baltimore County didn't have air-conditioned window units. Not no damn fans, man. And I said then, how come we're our politicians to talk about Baltimore City Public Schools? One, you ain't got the lead out of the water in 150 schools. Two, you don't have window air conditioning units, man. So you can't tell me they can do that in Baltimore County, but yet you can't do that in Baltimore City? That the teachers union is going to ask citizens to donate some fans, man? They need to hand in their resignations. How dumb could they be? When given an opportunity, when this discussion was going down about Baltimore County, and at that time, that old schmuck, what's that one they said died? What was his name? The county exec, what's the one they said died? He lived right next to the fire station. What was it? Kevin Kamenetz, man. Kevin Kamenetz. Kamenetz, yeah, he just died, they said. You know what I mean? He died and they buried him the next day. I said, now, I thought he was a Jew, not a Muslim, man. He had a funeral the next day. I know Muslims get buried in 24 hours. I ain't buried him. I don't know if he died or he went to Israel, man. I really don't know. But that was a quick-ass funeral. That's all I know. But the bottom line was when Kevin Kamenetz was the Baltimore County exec, Hogan and Peter Franchot withheld the money until they got air conditioners in all the schools in Baltimore County. Now, shouldn't they do the same to Baltimore City? Saying to these teachers, saying to all those over North Avenue, right? Withholding any state money from coming to you until you get air conditioning and get that lead out of the waters in Baltimore City Public School. Now, I know some of y'all went to the AFRAM this week. I bet you wasn't no habitat out there at the zoo closed because they had lead or in the water or because they didn't have air conditioning. I bet you that. The damn giraffes stay outside, but they got air conditioning in the giraffe house. You know what I mean? So you see how they reduce our children, right? Below the levels of the animals at the Baltimore City or the Maryland Zoo, man. That's the sad part in this city that we live in, one of the richest cities and richest states in the country. So I'm going to put a pause in it, open up the lines, man, and take your Facebook questions or response. 404-436-1277. 404-436-1277. Your thoughts, comments on this Epstein case. Got to come back and do a part 3 or part 4 on this whole Epstein case. Because this rabbit hole, as we keep saying, is deep, man. And it goes deep, steep, and goes high up the food chain in terms of, again, elites and others. And it ties into the Pizzagate, ties into the pedophile rings, ties into the Nexum Gate and all these other gates that's been going on, man, as well. And how we can protect our children and our women and our girls. Because in Baltimore City, they had a young sister. I think her name was Akia Eagleston. Her father was on The View 2 weeks ago talking about how she went missing May the 3rd, 2017, and she was 8 months pregnant. And there's a lot of people that go missing in this city, in this state, that oftentimes is not even being talked about, man. The TV stations don't lead the news talking about missing women and missing children. You know, they lead talking about if it's bleeding, it's leading. That's what the play on our emotions is what they get, right? But all the women and the children and men that's missing in this city and in this state, man. So we got to be the ones that humanize them and lift that up as well. With that, let me go to the line. If you got a thought, question, comment, 404-436-1277, or a Facebook question or response, you can go to, of course, State of the City, RadioOnFire.com, send that response. And, of course, we'll podcast the show after the show tonight on my Facebook page, on, of course, Radio on Fire YouTube page as well, so that you can go back and watch it in its entirety. So with that, got any questions, my brother?
Yes. It says, if our young men knew our history of sagging pants, maybe they would not do it.
Yes, sir. I agree. We got to teach them. So we got to teach them, and we got to wash, rinse, and repeat at the same time. So good question. Thank you very much. Next question.
Something tells me you do not believe Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide.
Well, I think we got to look at it from all sides and all perspectives. That's all. So you look at it overtly, covertly. You look at it from the metaphysical. Look at it from the physical. That's all. So you always got to keep an open mind, and always keep an open mind. Never have a closed mind, because then, of course, you can receive more information. So, but good question in terms of that. All right. And always think outside the box. So as Taco Bell said, think outside the bun. All right. Next question, my brother.
What questions will be able to be answered now that he is dead?
Them files. You got to go and read the files. And I posted them on my Facebook page. As soon as I tried to open it up, they shut my Facebook down. So I gotta go back and get those files, download the files, and then of course you can read the files, see the names that's in there, see the places and the spaces and the faces. All that's mentioned and talked about that's in those files. 2,000 pages was released. So don't think that he wasn't taken out or taken out either way because of what was released and who named, faces, places, etc. was released in those 2,000 files. And you better know there's more files to come as well, because they said he was very meticulous about the books, the names, the faces, the places, and information he kept. Particularly if we said he was a double agent or a triple agent or a quadruple agent regarding that as well. All this has come out that when they raided his house in New York, right, they found passports to several other countries, man. So again, Britain was in there, Israel was in there, France was in there, Spain was in there. So you got who else was he working for or twerking for? So again, good question though. Next.
They don't talk about it because it's organ harvesting.
Very true. Number one place they do organ harvesting, hospitals and clinics. So as I said last week and talked to my brother Mike out there, we were talking about two fastest growing institutions and centers in the cities right now in Baltimore, the DeVita dialysis centers. Then John Hopkins owned one called Fresenius, Fresnius, I think it's called, and DeVita. Now, when we was coming up, only DeVitas we knew was a girl named Bonita. You know what I mean? We didn't know nothing about no DeVita. But DeVita are the fastest growing centers in terms of the kidney dialysis centers and then the methadone centers. And again, as I said a couple of weeks ago, that's because Wall Street, Bain Capital, you can Google it, I posted it, about Obama's best friend, one of them, former governor of Massachusetts, Deval Patrick, DeBoule, is the head of Bain's Capital. And Bain's Capital has been heavily invested in methadone clinics. It's why they oversaturate them in Baltimore City and other cities in America right now, because Goldman Sachs, Wall Street, private equity funds are using what they call social impact bonds. And these social impact bonds will give them guaranteed money, because if you build it, they will come. So they will have guaranteed victims of, again, of drug abuse, right? It's going to be hung out, strung out with the tongue out. And they just keep them coming, man. You see them, you go outside here. Charles Street, man. They got centers oversaturated. They got more centers on these corners than they got churches and liquor stores right now. In fact, they've been buying up the Korean liquor stores. Y'all know how hard it was to get Koreans to sell, to shut down a Korean liquor store? notice they've been buying up the Korean liquor stores, man. If you haven't noticed that. And that's because they put in the methadone. They had a pool hall up on 25th Street, didn't they, bro? You remember that pool hall was up on Green Mountain 25th?
Yep, couple blocks away from
what is it now? What is it now? Treatment center, right?
Yeah.
Methadone center, right? Yeah, I mean, look around.
That pool hall used to be jumping a little bit.
What's
Yeah,
that?
It was jumping. The
Oh, you talking about the pool hall? Oh, the pool hall was jumping.
Yeah.
They jumping down up there on the corner. They just on something else for while they
Well,
jumping.
yeah,
That's all.
that's true.
And then the ones ain't jumping again. You see them leaning. Oh, you see them right? And that drug basically it eats up the calcium in their body. That's why many of them at 30 and 40 be bent over like that. Look like they got spina bifida or kyphosis, right, of the spine because it was what it does to their spine. Yeah. But good question. Next question.
Jeffrey Epstein definitely is connected to the royal family, and the royal family has had control of many of our politicians and corporations for years.
Absolutely. That's very true. So, I mean, again, a lot of that goes back for years. But again, that's why I keep saying timing is everything. And I won't get into a lot of the signs, symbols, numerology tonight, but it's no coincidence when they talk about that. Tavistock Institute, how that's tied to, again, the book Committee of 300, Fritz Springmeyer's book, 13 Bloodlines of the Illuminati, all that's tied into it. So, again, there's the child, Ninth Circle child pedophile ring, which, of course, was in court, I think on an international level that you can pull up and read about, talking about so-called royal family. And it's interesting, the other thing was that the timing of this other movie they got coming out, what's the movie they got coming out called? The Hunted or something? Where the woman marries a guy and then the whole family is hunting her at night. She's the bride. It's almost like the Purge movie.
Yeah.
Right, but she's the wedding. She's the bride, but they're hunting her because she's like a Trump supporter or something. You know what I mean? They putting it right out in your face, the kind of things that they do. But next question.
With Baltimore City's latest issues with money in regards to the Board of Education, couldn't the governor order an audit since they do fall under his control?
Absolutely. The governor could order it, and State Comptroller Peter Franchot could order it. Baltimore City Comptroller Joan Pratt could order it as well. So again, it's just a sad reality that you have those talking about fans for our children, man. But you remember when Governor Hogan and Comptroller withheld that money, man, at the Board of Estimates meetings and they were talking about it, right?
I was mad about it because I said nobody's doing anything for the city.
Right, yeah. And so, the city politicians was absent from the conversation. But yet they go down and tell me we want some damn marijuana dispensaries. You know what I mean? That's how dumb they were. Cheryl Glenn and the rest of them tell me they was absent from, you're supposed to inject us, but let's you see what their priorities are or not. You understand? Don't tell me you love the children. Where you put your money is where, and your energy is what you really care about. And they didn't put no money and energy in saying we need every school to have air conditioning. And then you got to do maintenance, and you do an audit on, a physical audit on who does the maintenance in these buildings. Because we were the ones that blew the whistle years ago about a guy named Gilbert Saperstein, who had All-State Boiler. He was working with some Indians, Rajiv Dixon and others. This was a 14-person indictment that came down when, I can't think of the state special prosecutor's name right now, but he prosecuted them. They were stealing money, man, but then putting in false work orders, right? And when the boilers went bad and children were sitting in cold buildings, Jane Miller talked about it last year, right? But I had talked about this years ago. Now the black media in this town and black radio talk, the masses of the people know I was exposing this information. They wait for a white woman, Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and that Yaya Sisterhood, and Lipstick Leslie and Jane Miller to say something about it. Then they say, oh yeah, you're right, that's what was going on. You take it on face value. And she's the face that you value, not your little brother, when we was telling you that was going on. We blew the whistle on that years ago about what they were doing. And Gilbert Saperstein, I think he died a couple of years ago, but his son's still around here, his brother's still around here, and some of the other ones still around here as well. Good question. Next question.
Not one of the politicians in Baltimore came out to Malachi's funeral or sent a letter or
Heard about
flowers.
that. Isn't that sad, man? My blood brother, Brother Kenny, sent me information about that. Isn't that sad? But it shows you what their priorities are, man. You know what I mean? Right? Yeah. If they'd have spent all that energy that they spent denouncing Trump, right? Just coming out to pay respects to a 4-year-old, man. They said we're gonna look at, because last I checked, this Child Protective Service and social work, sociologists, they're still under the city of Baltimore, right? Still under the state of Maryland. So somebody dropped the ball on this little brother's case, man. And take that and multiply it. How many other children in dire straits should not be in the custody of some foster parents or biological parents, right? And they, and so how many more, man? That's the question we should be asking. And we say shame on them. Jack Young. Shame on Brandon Scott, right? Shame on all the ones that say they care about children, but they couldn't stop and part or send a representative, send some flowers. They told me I think the little brother had maybe 3 flowers around his casket. I mean, damn, how much? Marilyn Mosby? Hey, let me let you in something. They have a in the state's attorney's office, if your loved one is a victim of violence and lose their life, the state's attorney's office can pay for the whole funeral, man. But yet she don't tell the public about that. She run around here having them little pop-ups, want to give y'all a cookout. Y'all job enough to be falling for that foolishness, man. But they got a department within the state's attorney's department, and the funeral directors know about it. Carlton Douglas know about it, but they want their money up front, so they're not going to tell you that. You know what I mean? They ain't going to do the funeral and wait to get the check. They want their money. They make a killing off our people. That's why they're not going to tell you. Marsh Funeral Home not going to tell you. These funeral directors make a killing going and coming, man, and they will not tell you this information. But all you got to do is tap into it and tell her you calling because, again, your loved one is a victim of violence, man, and they will pay for the funeral. And no expense. They got families running to me. They got to set up a GoFundMe and all that kind of stuff. Oh, you get these funeral directors. You better get you some insurance. That's they running a scam. That's all they running. Next question before we got to begin to wrap up.
Harrison has a 5-year crime reduction strategy, and part of it is increasing public relations and visibility.
Nothing wrong with that, but that ain't gonna stop crime. A good PR campaign.
No,
you know what I mean?
not.
Right? That ain't stopping no crime, man. Real work is what's gonna stop crime. You know what I mean? So and it ain't gonna be no predictive policing with no spy in the sky plane and all that other foolishness that they trying to offer up to our people with Ricky Spector and some of these other people that they're using to try to push this on our people to say, we should accept them spying on all of us to stop crime in the city. But, it ain't gonna work. Hasn't worked. Didn't work in Suarez or Juarez, Mexico. It ain't gonna work here. All right? Next question.
Harrison wants to improve police relations. What's wrong with that?
Ain't nothing wrong with improving police relations, man. But if you want to improve police relations with me, find the guys who shot Carrington, then go open up that case. Well, they never closed the case on Sean Suter. Find the killers of Sean Suter. And you ain't got far to go, Harrison. All you got to do is come down off that 4th floor, go get David Bominka, put him in the lie detector, get Suter's phone records, get Bominka phone records, get them phone towers that was down there. Was that street he was killed on, Bennett Place? Find out who else was down there that day, man. That's all you got to do. But if you can't solve relations with the FOP within your police department, good luck with talking about you want some real community relations, man. Because if you, again, charity and clarity and parity begins at home, right down there. And you go a long way opening that case, or not opening the case, but solving the case of Sean Suter, or just the recent case of this police officer that was killed. Police officer that was shot, Carrington. Good question, though. Thank you very much.
Elijah Cummings never talks about the suffering black folks, not only in Baltimore, but other cities across the country.
Not at all. But he getting ready right now as we speak. As I heard young brother Faraji Muhammad bringing up on his show. So I talked about the GOP is having a retreat here September, I think it's the 12th, 13th, and 14th. But that's the same weekend that Elijah Cummings, or Elijah running, or he rolling with that walker right now. Really, he just rolling around. Look like a dead man rolling for the most part. But they got the Congressional Black Caucus weekend, which is nothing but another Greek freak. I used to have a Greek fest down there in Atlanta. Ain't nothing but another Greek freak picnic for the most part, man. Ain't nothing comes out of it. And all it is corporate America, right? Big pharma, big banking, sponsoring them fake dog and phony show town hall meetings, right? Then after that, everybody can't wait to have their dance and have their dinner, man. Rump shaking, booty shaking, try to get a hookup. That's it going on down there for that whole weekend. That's where they'll be down there, man. No black agenda ever comes out of it. no issues about what's happening in the cities in America ever comes out of it, only thing it'll be is come down. We're going to have our big boogeyman. Trump is going to get us. So you better help us, because if not, Trump going to get you. That's the game they play on. You've been reduced to that, man. Nothing else comes out of it. He ain't had one meeting talking about an opportunity zone at all. He ain't had one meeting with brothers and sisters coming home from prison to talk about the First Step Act and how that can ensure brothers and sisters getting jobs who are coming home from prison and how to make them whole. But yet, your dumb mayor, Jack Young, because he's taking order from Bishop Lurie, the head of the Archdiocese in Maryland, is putting aside $150,000 for illegal immigrants to help them, where they can't help brothers get out child support. You know what I mean? They ain't helping brothers get out of the child support downtown, right? To say, lift this bogus lien you got on these brothers' licenses so they can drive and make a living, man. They're not helping these brothers, right? But yet they say they want to help all the illegal undocumented that's coming into the city of Baltimore. That's an insult, man. That's an insult to us as black folk. So I agree with the listener is saying. Trump ain't talking about, Cummings ain't talking about our people, man. And he even said if Trump comes, guess where he said he's going to take them? University of Maryland and Johns Hopkins. That's the first thing he said. I said, now ain't that a bitch, man? Ain't that a bitch? He going to take them to the two institutions that's been sucking the most money out of this community, Johns Hopkins and the University of Maryland. But that shows you where his priorities are, man. That's Elijah Cummings that some of y'all want to around here and co-sign for, man. And as I always say, only those with bad credit need co-signers. And his credit is bad when it comes to the masses of black folk. In fact, his credit is in chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. His ass ought to be in liquidation right now. You understand? As bad as he look like he in liquidation. All right? But he need to be in liquidation. And we need a brother or a sister, as I understand there's a sister that says she's going to run against him. So we need, since this is the year of the woman, as they've been saying, and why are black women challenging Elijah Cummings? What are they afraid of? Or they understand that that's the Democratic plantation. Get in line, stay in line, or we're going to put you in line. So you don't see no black women or white women challenging Elijah Cummings, who they redistrict because of his weakness, his district, which is our district, all the way out into Howard County and into Baltimore County, man, because of his complicity in allowing him to do that. So if you're going to tell the story, let's tell the whole story about Elijah Cummings. Not be like the Afro and the Baltimore Times and Larry Young and Radio 1. They have a romance and a bromance with Elijah Cummings. And as the song says, romance without finance is nonsense. All right? So stop your nonsense. Next question, then we got to begin to wrap up.
You got three good ones. Can you do a show that connects the dots with city and state leaders that are connected to Baltimore City College?
Baltimore City College? Yeah, we're going to do Baltimore City College, Coppin State University, Morgan State University, because I heard Faraji talking about, well, should black people be at this GOP retreat? I bet you Morgan president going to be there, Coppin president going to be there, and others going to be there because they get money for their opportunity zone, the opportunity zones are in their area and their zip code and in their community.
They don't promote that, though.
Oh, no, they're not going to promote it. See, they play on the fears of the masses of black people while they looking out for what they can get for themselves, man. Which is very selfish and shameful that they're doing that. So, but no, we got to do a show, I think, about BCC or CCB. Because CCB sits on very vital land right there by Mondawmin, right?
Yes.
You right by the water right there. You see what they doing with that whole Hanlon Park and everything?
Yes.
Right, that's the parking lot of CCB back there. You see all that land, man? They will expand that. That's why Kirk Smoke want to put CCB and Coppin under the University of Baltimore. It's a land grab and a man grab. But when they can take it, all them employees that work at CCB going to lose their benefits. I already been talking to some of the brothers and sisters that work there. That's the other thing you got to look at. You understand? So what they doing is real shrewd, man. But Kirk Smoke put it out there. But white man put it out there. People would have seen through it for what it really is. So they had to use one of their favorite lawn, what they call that? Jockos? Lawn jockos? You know, that's Kirk Smoke. All right? The boule. All right? Next question.
Did you know Centoya Brown is married to Pretty Ricky Singer?
Who?
A Pretty Ricky Singer, R&B group.
So the young lady who was in jail has married who?
He's a singer in Pretty Ricky. called J Long.
J Long. No, I don't know who he is. I have to look it up. That's all. Okay.
Yeah, R&B group from 10 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, I don't usually keep up with that kind of stuff, but thank you for just the info, the insight.
Black men and women, you best wake up. Genocide through homicide is a weapon used on those who are ignorant and can't recognize that war has been declared on us.
That's true. Absolutely. Yeah, war has been declared on us. And genocide, because again, as I think I heard somebody say, in terms of the useless eaters, as they refer to us as a people. And again, they're creating this caste system inside of America right now. And blacks are still at the bottom. They're bringing everybody else in and putting them above us as a people. And we're to be the permanent underclass. And so after that, they don't need you no more. Then, of course, genocide is the next plan. That's the next obvious way. So we have to wake up and organize. While those fights are going on among certain groups of whites, we should be organizing and strategizing for our people right now. So, but again, if you don't know we're at war, then as Dr. Francis Cress Welsing said, if you don't understand racism and white supremacy, all that you think you know, you don't know. So you got to continue to have real, I think, relevant media that kind of arm our people with the information and alert our people to what's really going on. So take maybe one or two more, then we got to wrap up.
What are your thoughts on El Paso, Texas?
El Paso, Texas. Again, it's a psyops. What was the other place? Ohio? Psyop. You seen any funerals? I'm just asking, you seen any funerals?
Well, there's a memorial service going on.
Oh, they know how to have them. They had them in a minute.
People in El Paso later today.
I want to see some open caskets, man. You know what I mean?
Want to see that.
I want to see some Emmett Till kind of bodies. You know what I mean? Right? I want to see some open caskets. That's all I'm saying. You understand? Yeah. I'm from Missouri, the show me state. I don't believe grits is groceries and eggs is poultry. I got to see some bodies, man. That's all I'm saying. So, did we shut down? What's going on here? Okay. All right. But no, I got to see some bodies. That's all. Because a lot of times you hear these stories, they sensationalize, right? And again, a lot of it, keep on who benefits. What political issue are they trying to push, right? And a lot of it is, again, what they call gun control, which ain't about controlling guns. It's about disarming the people is what it's about, man. And then the roundup will come. Then the genocide will be ushered in even quicker. Go back and look at Hurricane Katrina, and we coming up on that anniversary. Yes, how they was going door to door taking people guns. You know what I mean? Go back and once they took them guns, when them brothers tried to get out and went across that Danziger Bridge, one of the brothers, he was basically mentally retarded, right? Developmentally disabled. And they shot and killed him, didn't burn the body. You know what I mean? The police did that. You understand? But they could only do that because the people wasn't armed. They were going door to door, confiscate. Go back and look at what they was doing in Boston when they claimed they was looking for them Boston bombers, man. They were going door to door, taking people guns from them. You understand? A lot of times that's a dress rehearsal and a trial run for when they do declare martial law and things go down like that. All right? So, again, you got to be prepared. Other groups are being prepared. They telling the people, preppers. People be like, what do you mean a prepper? You know what I mean? They showing you prepping, right? About what happens if again, what you saw in Katrina, man. That's all I'm saying. So, you got to prepare. You store up. You stack away food. You stock away, non-perishable items that you might need for something like that may come. Right. But Katrina should have been our wake-up call, right? Katrina was 2005? Mm-hmm. Right? Okay. And, most people, we like grasshoppers. We just keep jumping around all summer. Not like the ant organizing, right? Right? Yeah. Sure. I ain't even seen no grass. You seen any grasshoppers lately, man? No. They all been killed off, right? So you better be like the ant. We better be like the ant. All right? So with that, that have to be the last question, right?
Jack Young was at AFRAM.
Yeah. What does that mean? Because he was at AFRAM. That's what I'm saying, right? At AFRAM, right?
So they got exclamation points, so they're not happy.
That's Jack Young. You know what I mean? That's what he'll do. You know what I mean? Somebody is obviously trying to make him the celebritization of the mayors like they've done with Pew. Like, speaking of Pew, see, she popped. Well, I don't know if she popped up. She wasn't out in the public, right? They just had a story on her in the news, right? Yeah. That pretty much was it. She still ain't came forward and told what happened, man. And, of course, they came out with an audit last week or 2 weeks ago and then Jack Young said he was going to do an audit on Associated Black Charities. Isn't that shameful what Associated Black Charities has been doing or not doing for our people, man? Diane Bell McCoy and a lot of these other Democratic bedwenches. I know some of y'all don't like me saying that. Yeah. But that's what she is, a Democratic bedwench, man. She was over the school board when they was closing all our black schools.
What does bedwench mean?
You know what a bedwench is. You ain't gotta ask. You know what a Democratic bedwench is. You know what I mean? Anytime Massa want to have access to them, they have access to them. You know what I mean?
That's what I thought you meant.
Right, yeah, a Democratic bedwench. And the only thing that the Associated Black Charity turned out to be was a slush fund or a conduit or pass-through for Baltimore City Mayor and others in the city of Baltimore, man. That's why you need audits, but that's why the crooks don't want you to see an audit, because then the crooks don't want you to see the books, because then they be on the hook and could be on a straight trail of jail with no bail. So we need more audits in this city. And if the black press was doing their job, then you wouldn't have to hear from Brother Muhammad. If the black civil rights organization was doing their job, you wouldn't have to hear from Brother Muhammad or Brother David Johnson. But the mere fact they not is why you got to hear it from shows like this.
But there's a
Radio
reason,
Fire.
because all they do is recycle the same
Old
stories
news,
that
right.
they hear.
They push views and call it news. That's all they do, man. Nothing else. You know what I mean? Right. So with that, we got to begin to wrap up the show and the flow. But again, don't forget, we will podcast the show on my Facebook page, also on Radio on Fire YouTube page as well. But don't forget to support Radio on Fire. You can go to their Cash App, Radio on Fire, all one word, to support the state of the city. Of course, please give of your time, your talent, and treasure so that we can continue to have this show coming on. If you'd like to become a sponsor, please reach out to me, of course, on Facebook. We'll be more than happy to have your business sponsor the state of the city. But my Cash App is $SOTC Muhammad, MUHA-MMAD. Of course, all one word, spelled right behind me, MUHA-MMAD. Spell it right, get it right. And you can tune in, of course, and continue to support State of the City. Got to thank, speaking of sponsor, Cultural Essence, my main man out there, Brother Derek X Bonds, his beautiful wife, Sister Keisha. If you have not tried the all-natural soaps, lotion, shea butter, they got a shower gel, they got a beard gel for the men, they got beards, right? Reach out to my brother. He can be reached 253-271-9268. They're right here locally, but they will ship the products to you around the country. Also, of course, he will deliver them to you here locally if you're in Tubman City or Baltimore City. So again, Brother Derek X Bonds, Cultural Essence, all one word, culturalessenceinc.com. They've been to the White House, man, and have gotten support from President Trump, from Melania Trump, and White House staff. So they're going to soon be on the QVC network. So don't say we didn't tell you now, all right? But I'll have them come on soon and very soon to talk about, I think, the work that they've been doing through the White House supporting small black businesses, all right? So I've been your host, Brother Muhammad. We're going to podcast the show on our Facebook page. We'll be back on Saturday, State of the City on WFBR 1590. So in the meantime, in between time, stay watchful, stay vigilant as I always say. So I thank again my brother and host, owners of this station, of course, Brother D. Williams, and we're going to hopefully Monday on the 19th, she has already given me the nod. We'll have a special edition. It is the 2nd year anniversary of the death of Baba Dick Gregory. So tune in. I promise you we're going to have some things that you probably have never heard before regarding what happened to him at that hospital. And staff that I spoke to at the hospital, brothers who were working at the hospital at that time that shared pertinent, relevant information at that time. A sister who was there had pictures of him there at the hospital, downstairs in the little patio or gardening area that they have outside of Sibley Memorial Hospital at 3:30 or 4:30, and then for him to be pronounced dead at 7:30. That none of that added up. His body is at a cemetery in Bladensburg, which doesn't make sense. When he lived in Plymouth, Massachusetts, his wife, Mama Lil, is still in Plymouth, Massachusetts. So none of that has ever made sense. Of course, and many and plenty who was in contact with him in his circle, of course, they made sure to cut Brother Muhammad off, not allow me to have access to the microphones, except my own, to talk about